Greetings everybody and welcome back to PC Tech and Gaming. My name is Kyle, and in today's video, if you didn't guess by the title, we're going to be doing something really interesting. And also, this video marks our 100 subscriber special. Now I know what you're going to say next, 100 subscribers. Big YouTube channels get 100 subscribers, new subscribers in a day, and you're right, but we're a new channel, so you know, we've got to celebrate the little things, and I just thought for this particular addition to our PC Tech video library, I would do something a little bit cool and retro, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We're going to wind back the clock about 16 years to when Nvidia's Geforce 6 series reigned supreme. Not 600 series, but Geforce 6 series. Yes, these are the 6th generation Nvidia Geforce cards. And today we are going to be having a little look at the Geforce 6600 GT. Now this was the mid-ranged video card of the series, and considered to be extremely good performance for the price that it came out at. This card retailed for $199 USD, so it had a very competitive price when it came out. Not only that, the performance you got from this card was equal, if not greater, than the previous flagship Nvidia card, which was at the time the Geforce FX 5950 Ultra, or the Geforce FX 5900 Ultra, as most people had 5900 Ultras back in the day. The 5950 was truly a premium card if you could get your hands on one, and the performance difference between those two wasn't exactly the greatest. But at any rate, so this is pretty much the Hail Mary of budget gaming GPUs of 16 years ago, which would put us at about 2004, because that's when this card came out. So today we are going to put two of these cards in SLI and challenge one of the greatest games to ever grace the PC, known as Crysis. And the good meme which everybody knows, can it run Crysis? Well, today we're going to find out whether these two Geforce 6600 GTs in SLI working together can run Crysis at any level. Please bear in mind that these cards came out 3 years before Crysis. Crysis was released in 2007. These cards were released in 2004. So Crysis was only but a twinkle in their little fan blades, probably still being developed or early in development when these cards came out. So these cards are in no way prepared to run this title, and bear in mind, this is the original Crysis, not Crysis Remastered, as that has not come out as yet. So let's go over the specs of the Geforce 6600 GT before we dive into our benchmarks and see how these guys performed in Crysis. The Geforce 6600 GT was released on the 12th of August 2004. It carries 128 megabytes of GDDR3 memory, running on the NV43 Nvidia graphics core. The core clock speed was 500 MHz, the memory speed was 1000 MHz on a 128-bit memory bus that yielded 16 GB per second of memory bandwidth. This card was twice as fast as the previous Nvidia flagship, the Geforce FX 5950 Ultra. So now that we know the specs of the Geforce 6600 GT, let's dive in and see exactly how these guys perform in Crysis. We're going to run two test scenarios here, the first being a single GPU, the second being in SLI of course, and we're going to run all three graphics settings, low, medium and high. I would like to hope that we can run Crysis in medium settings with SLI enabled. I think that would give us enough quality to feel like we're actually playing Crysis, while at the same time hopefully giving us playable performance. So let's dive into the benchmarks. Let's first start with single GPU mode, low, medium and high settings. Let's roll the tapes. wasn't that an interesting test? And we pretty much found out what we probably both expected would happen. In single GPU operation, Crysis is basically unplayable in anything but low settings, and even then, low settings aren't even that playable, as we were averaging about 14.6 frames per second in the lowest settings. The other two modes were single digit frame rates per second, so basically unplayable. It was like a slideshow. And believe you me, when I was testing these video cards, it was a slideshow. It took so long to do these benchmarks when you're running at 2 to 4 frames a second in some of these modes. But we have hope. And that hope is, let's add a second card. Let's up the ante. Let's double our Geforce 6600 GT power. And let's see what 2 of these cards yield in comparison to 1. Now hopefully we get double the performance, but we'll see. So without further ado, let's roll the tapes a second time and let's see what adding a second card into the mix gives us. And we're back, and the results, well, I think we both kind of knew what would happen, but it's still pretty fun to see what does happen when you put these cards into this situation. So as we thought, we're still not getting playable frame rates at high or medium, with high settings giving us an average of 4 frames per second. Mind you, that's up from 2 frames per second with a single GPU, so we're definitely getting 100% scaling here, and both GPUs were pegged at 100% utilization during all these tests. For medium settings, we got 6.5 frames a second, and again, that's not very playable. But that was up from 3.7 frames per second on a single GPU, so again, 100% scaling. But when you're 100% scaling, single-digit FPS, performance is not really going to improve that much, but still good to see that we're utilising both cards to the absolute maximum we can. And thirdly, we went for low settings in SLI. This was the only setting which I could say confidently that you could play the game with any kind of enjoyment. And by enjoyment, I mean not visuals, but being able to actually play the game. Running Crysis in a single GPU form, i.e. one Geforce 6600 GT in any settings, is unplayable. And in SLI, we can only run it in low and have playable settings. So out of our 6 scenarios here, single GPU and dual GPU SLI, out of 6 scenarios, we are only left with 1 that's a playable solution, and that's low settings in SLI. Where we managed 27.6 frames a second. Now, I know what you're saying. That's hardly what you would kind of call playable. But remember, we're running the game on hardware that came out 3 years before the game itself. So there's no way known is it optimization for these cards in Crysis' game engine. Not to mention Nvidia probably haven't optimized their drivers for these cards to run Crysis. And yeah, it's pretty low, 27.6 or whatever it was. It's not what you would call playable in most sentences, but it did feel smooth enough that you could complete the game on this setting. As I said earlier, it doesn't really look like Crysis in low settings. You kind of look like you're playing through, you know, a game that basically is from years and years predating Crysis, probably from the, you know, the early 2000s or late 90s. That's what Crysis looks like when it's in low settings. So it is what I would call a bare minimum playable experience, but not an enjoyable experience, from the sheer fact that the frame rate is still so low and the graphics settings are so low that it's not Crysis anymore. But hey, that was really fun to do. I really enjoyed testing these two cards out in this situation. I think I forgot to mention earlier the brand that these two cards are. They are actually made by Chaintech, which is not a brand these days that's an NVIDIA partner. In fact, I don't think they make any graphics cards at all these days. I don't even think they exist. They might have fell off the face of the planet. I don't know. But yeah, so I was extremely lucky to get two of these cards in such good condition, and the fact that they both work in SLI mode is equally as gratifying. I would probably call them the slowest SLI setup in the world, being that no Geforce card below the 6600 GT had SLI support. So when you're talking about SLI and NVIDIA graphics cards, these are truly the very bottom of the entire stack. If you go right from the GeForce 6 era all the way up to the current RTX 2000 series and upcoming RTX 3000 series, these guys sit at the very bottom. So it's impressive that they could play the game in any form, I think. But anyway, that's it for this video. I very much hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. It was a really cool, fun thing to do. I'm thinking about some more projects I might do with these two cards in SLI. It'd be nice to, you know, see if there's a game out there even worse than Crysis to push them against. But we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much once again. I really appreciate you sticking through and watching the video. If you've watched the video from start to finish, don't forget to drop a like if you liked the video before you go. Drop a dislike as well if that's what you want to do. And yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Thanks once again, and I'll see you guys next time.